The letter was simple. The handwriting was neat but cold, and the words it held were like daggers. I read it over and over again, but nothing changed. It was clear. Too clear. It wasn't the kind of thing you expect to find in your mailbox. Not after all these years. But there it was, tucked between a pizza flyer and a bill I didn't want to look at. I had been married to Delilah for 12 years. She wasn't my first love, but she was supposed to be my last. The letter told me I was wrong. I didn't recognize the address at first. It wasn't from a friend or family, and it wasn't from someone I worked with. But it had her name on the envelope. A small name, a name I had whispered in the quiet of early mornings and shouted in moments of frustration. But it wasn't just her name, it was a message too. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry, so I didn't either. I stood there, in my kitchen, holding the letter as if it were a fragile thing, knowing full well it wasn't. The contents were brief. Noah, I'm not the woman you think I am anymore. You need to leave. Take the space. I've made up my mind. Delilah. It wasn't what I expected. I wanted anger. I wanted confrontation. Something to explain the growing distance, the coldness, the emptiness that had filled the space between us in the past few months. But instead, I got resignation. A woman who had made a decision and was quietly moving on. At that moment, everything felt out of my control. The kitchen was silent, the lights above me buzzing as if mocking my helplessness. I could feel my heart beating in my ears, but it wasn't panic. It was something worse. It was the ache of loss. Loss of something I didn't know was gone until it was too late. Delilah was gone, not physically, but emotionally. She had checked out long before I even realized it. I didn't call her. I didn't try to visit. I didn't want to beg. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. What could I do? She'd already made it clear, and I'd been the fool not to see it. Days passed, then weeks. I threw myself into work, staying late, focusing on things that kept my mind busy and my emotions in check. But I couldn't shake the thought that something wasn't right. She was gone, yes, but something inside me kept telling me it wasn't finished. Not really. I moved out, but it wasn't the house that haunted me. It was the unanswered questions, the nagging feeling that I didn't have the closure I needed. I spent nights pacing in my apartment, wondering if I was even capable of starting over, if she ever truly cared. But in those moments of loneliness, I convinced myself that she was already happy, already free. If she had really moved on, I needed to do the same. Then, one evening, as I sat on my couch with a glass of wine and the TV flickering in the background, I heard a knock on my door. Not a loud knock, just enough to make me pause, a gentle tap. I hesitated. Could it be her? My heart stopped for a second. I opened the door, expecting nothing. But there she was, standing on my doorstep. The woman who had written me that letter was now standing in front of me, her eyes softer than they'd been in months. I need to talk to you, Delilah said, her voice trembling slightly. I stared at her, speechless. Was I angry? Confused? Relief flooded over me, but I couldn't understand why she was here. Hadn't she made her choice already? I don't understand, I said, my voice low. I thought you made up your mind. I did, she whispered, her gaze dropping to the ground for a moment before she met my eyes again. But I think I was wrong. I stood frozen in the doorway, the weight of her words sinking in. What did that even mean? Was she asking for forgiveness? Or was this just another chapter in a story I wasn't sure I was ready to read? I was about to shut the door on her face. It wasn't a conscious decision, but it was a reflex. She'd hurt me, hadn't she? She had just written me off like I was some kind of inconvenience. And now she was standing there, telling me she'd been wrong? I didn't know what to feel. Anger, confusion, maybe even a little relief that she wasn't with someone else. But the truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore. The man who left the house, the man who walked out without a goodbye, was someone else. I wasn't that man anymore. And the woman in front of me? She wasn't the same either. The things I thought I knew about her were slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't tell if I wanted to catch them or let them fall. I'm sorry, Noah, Delilah said again, her voice almost breaking, her hand twitching at her side like she wasn't sure if she should reach for me. I was scared, and I thought leaving would be easier for both of us. It was the thought that got me. She had thought leaving would be easier. Easier for her, easier for us. I had to remind myself that she wasn't the same person who had shared late-night conversations with me about our future. She was someone who had distanced herself so far, emotionally, that I had barely recognized it until the damage was done. And now she was standing there, trying to explain the mess of her decisions like it was all so simple. You thought it would be easier? I said, struggling to find the words. Easier for who, Delilah? For me? You just walk out and leave me to figure it out alone? She closed her eyes for a moment, and I saw the tension in her face. She was holding back tears, genuine tears. I was scared, she repeated, quieter this time. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to fix it. I thought I needed to leave to find myself again. But Noah, I've been lost without you. The words felt like they were meant to pull me back in, to make me forget how wrong everything had gone. I couldn't tell if it was working, though. I couldn't tell if I was still that man who was willing to forgive her and give us another shot, or if I had finally reached the point where I needed to let go. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I just stood there, watching her, feeling every inch of the distance between us. I couldn't deny that part of me had missed her, had missed the person she used to be, the woman who had once held my hand through every storm. But this wasn't just about missing her. This was about me. This was about what I had become during the time we were apart. I stepped back from the door, motioning for her to come in, though I didn't know why. Maybe I needed the answers, or maybe I was just tired of the silence. Either way, I couldn't stand there any longer. She entered the apartment, and for a moment, the quiet settled between us, like two strangers trying to find something familiar in each other. I motioned toward the couch, but she didn't sit down right away. She looked around the place, her eyes landing on the little details, the way I had rearranged the furniture, the way I hadn't gotten rid of our wedding photo yet. It was clear that I was trying to hold on to things that no longer made sense. So what now? I finally asked, the question hanging in the air, as if I was daring her to say something that would give me the answer I was looking for. She hesitated, and I could see that she was struggling. I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I knew what I wanted. But now I don't. I never wanted to hurt you, Noah. But I think I was trying to escape something in myself, something I didn't want to face. I didn't know what to say to that. I wanted to yell at her. I wanted to ask her why she couldn't have come to me before, why we couldn't have tried to fix things before everything went up in flames. But I didn't, because I knew, deep down, that if I started yelling, there would be no coming back from it. Do you still love me? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Her eyes welled up again, and she bit her lip. I don't know if I ever stopped, she said softly. But I don't know if love is enough anymore. I don't know if it ever was. I felt the weight of her words hit me like a freight train. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was the truth. Love wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to fix what was broken between us. She had made up her mind, and the worst part was, I could feel her slipping away again, even as she stood there. For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do next. Should I try to salvage this? Should I reach out, pull her close, and beg her to stay? Or should I let her go, walk away, and never look back? I didn't have an answer. But as she sat down, finally, on the couch, I realized that maybe the answer was never meant to be simple. Maybe it was never about fixing what was broken. Maybe it was about learning to live with the pieces we had left. I didn't know how long we sat there in that cramped living room, the silence between us growing thicker by the second. I could feel it in the air, this weight of uncertainty that neither of us was willing to acknowledge. Delilah sat with her arms wrapped around herself, as if trying to hold on to something she wasn't ready to let go of, even if she didn't know what it was. I sat across from her, my fingers gripping the edge of the coffee table, wondering what to do with the mess we'd made of everything. I'd expected anger. I'd expected the relief that came with hearing her admit she was wrong, that she hadn't moved on, that she still cared. But there was something more unsettling in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. It was as though she was asking for forgiveness, but not in the way I wanted. She was asking for understanding, for a second chance. But I wasn't sure I could give it to her. So what now? I asked again, my voice quieter this time. I was tired of wondering. Tired of asking the same question over and over, expecting an answer that would make everything clear. The problem was, I wasn't sure what I wanted either. She looked at me, her gaze filled with an emotion I couldn't read. I don't know, she whispered, almost to herself. I didn't think this would be so hard. Hard, I scoffed, standing up and pacing around the small room. You left me without a word, Delilah. You sent me a letter, told me to move on, and now you show up here expecting things to just go back to normal? I didn't want to hurt you, she said, her voice cracking, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I thought I needed to leave to figure things out, but I didn't know how empty it would feel without you. I stopped pacing, taking a deep breath as I let her words sink in. I didn't want to feel sympathy for her. I didn't want to be the man who forgave too easily, the man who let her walk all over him. But it was hard not to. It was hard not to look at her and see the woman I had once loved, the woman who had once been my world. I don't know if I can forgive you, I admitted, my voice rough. You broke something in me, Delilah. Something I don't know if I can fix. But I don't think I can just forget what you did. She nodded slowly, as if she had been expecting those words, as if she had already accepted them as the inevitable consequence of her actions. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe she had already made peace with everything, while I was still left here, struggling with the aftermath. I understand, she said quietly, but I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking for a chance to make things right. I stared at her, my mind racing, trying to process everything. A chance? What did that even mean anymore? Could I really go back to the person I was before all of this? Could I forget the nights spent alone, the silence that had stretched on for so long, the emptiness that had settled in my heart? But even as I stood there, fighting every urge to push her away, I couldn't deny that there was a part of me that wanted to try. A part of me that still believed in what we had, even if it was shattered. I can't promise you anything, I said, my voice steadying. I don't even know if I can look at you the same way again. But I can't keep pretending like I'm fine either. We need to figure this out. She gave me a small, hopeful smile, the kind of smile that used to make me feel invincible. But now, it only made me feel conflicted, like a man who was walking a tightrope, knowing that any moment could send him crashing down. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, Delilah said softly. I just want the chance to show you that I can be the person you thought I was. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The last few months had been a whirlwind, and it felt like I was standing at the edge of something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Then let's start there, I finally said, my voice low. One step at a time. The days that followed were filled with silence and small conversations, the kind that barely scratched the surface of what had happened. We didn't talk about the letter. We didn't talk about the months of separation or the betrayals that had gone unspoken. We just existed in this strange limbo, trying to find our way back to something that felt familiar, but knowing all along that it would never be the same again. I kept waiting for the moment when things would snap back into place, for the moment when I would feel like we were both on the same page again. But it never came. The cracks were still there, just hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. And then, one evening, as I was getting ready to go to bed, I found myself staring at the wedding photo we'd never taken down. The one we'd never put into a box or shoved into the attic. It had always been there, a symbol of everything we once were. But now, it felt like a distant memory. I reached for my phone and texted her. Do you ever think about what we've lost? Her response came quickly. Every day? I set the phone down and lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we could ever go back. Maybe we couldn't. Maybe the story was already over, and I was just too stubborn to admit it. But then, in the silence of the night, I heard it. The faintest sound. A knock at the door. The sound was soft at first, barely more than a tap. It was the kind of knock that might come from a neighbor needing sugar or a delivery that had gone wrong. But as I sat there, staring at my phone, the quiet of the evening made the sound seem louder. It was odd. It was the kind of noise that felt like a memory. I stood up, my mind racing. Delilah had left hours ago, saying she needed some space to think. I couldn't blame her. After everything that had happened, we both needed to think. We needed to figure out what came next. But I never imagined that space would be filled with a knock on my door, her knock, or so I feared. I walked slowly toward the door, half expecting to see her standing there, looking as unsure as she had when she first arrived, pleading for another chance. But when I opened it, I was greeted by the unexpected. It wasn't Delilah. It wasn't anyone I recognized. It was a man, a stranger. His face was tired, worn, like someone who had been through more than they were ready to share. His hair was messy, his clothes casual but a bit too neat for the hour. Can I help you? I asked, confused but trying to keep my voice steady. I'm looking for Delilah, the man said, his voice rough but polite. Is she here? I blinked, taken aback. No, she's not here, I replied, feeling a surge of protectiveness I didn't expect. Why? The man's eyes flicked briefly to the floor, then back to me. I need to talk to her. It's important. 1,000 thoughts flooded my mind in that split second. Why would someone come here looking for her? Who was this guy? And why was he acting like he had something to say to her? Delilah had told me about some of the people in her life, but I didn't recognize this one. I don't think she wants to talk to anyone right now, I said, feeling a sense of unease creeping up my spine. I know she doesn't want to, but I have no choice, the man replied, his expression softening slightly. I'm her brother. His name was Simon, by the way. Her brother? I had never heard her mention a brother before. Of course, that didn't mean much. There were a lot of things Delilah had never mentioned. And yet, I found myself considering whether I could trust him. Delilah had never spoken of a brother, perhaps because she was trying to keep him away, or perhaps because the two of them didn't get along. Or maybe, just maybe, this was the man who could explain why things had turned out this way. I stood there, unsure whether I should let him in or just shut the door and forget the whole thing. But something in his eyes, some desperate plea for understanding, made me hesitate. I don't know what's going on, I said, stepping aside. But if you're telling the truth, you can come in for a minute. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't here for a quick chat. This wasn't just about checking in. There was something deeper going on, something I wasn't yet ready to face. He walked in slowly, his footsteps echoing in the quiet apartment. I didn't want to come here like this, Simon said as he sat down across from me. But she's been avoiding me. I need to explain why. I raised an eyebrow, the tension in my chest growing. What do you mean, explain why? Explain why what? Explain why I'm the one who's responsible, he said quietly, looking down at his hands. For what happened between you and her. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I wasn't sure if I was angry, confused, or just desperate for answers. I hadn't seen this coming. It wasn't just Delilah's disappearance anymore. It was something far worse than I had imagined. What do you mean? I repeated, my voice tighter now. I don't know how to start, Simon said, rubbing his face with his hands. But here it is. I'm the one who told her to leave you. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. You told her to leave me? He nodded, his eyes filled with regret. I thought it was what she needed. She was unhappy, Noah. And I told her to go. I pushed her. I sat down slowly, trying to make sense of what he was saying. Delilah's brother had been the one to encourage her to leave me? Was that really the case? Or was he just trying to deflect blame for something else? My mind spun with a million questions, but one stood out above the rest. Why would he do that? Why would he be the one to tear us apart? She didn't want to hear it from me, Simon continued, his voice softer now. But I thought she would be better off on her own. She was struggling, and I didn't want her to feel trapped. I thought if she left, she could finally find herself again. You pushed her away, I said, the realization hitting me like a cold slap. And now she's the one who's paying for it. Simon looked at me, his eyes heavy with guilt. I didn't want to be the one to make that choice for her, he said. But I thought it was what she needed. She didn't deserve to be stuck, Noah. I thought it would set her free. I leaned back, trying to absorb everything he was saying. Was this the truth? Did Delilah know her brother had been the one to push her toward leaving me? Or was this just another lie, another layer of guilt? I was starting to question everything I thought I knew. And yet, one thing was clear. I was no longer sure what was real or who I could trust. Simon's words hung in the air between us like a dense fog, clouding everything I thought I knew about my relationship with Delilah. I could hardly wrap my mind around what he was saying. He pushed her away. The man who was supposed to be her family, the one who was supposed to care for her, had encouraged her to leave me? It didn't make sense. How could she not have told me this? How could I not have known? I stared at him, trying to process it all. My mind raced with anger, confusion, and a deep sense of betrayal that felt like it was seeping into my bones. Delilah had always been a bit secretive, a little guarded with certain parts of her life, but I never imagined this. I had no idea that her brother was the one who had influenced her decisions so deeply, the one who had planted this idea in her head that she needed to leave me to find herself. I leaned forward, trying to steady my breath. Why didn't you tell me this before? Why didn't you just say it, Simon? He rubbed his forehead, his face etched with regret. Because I knew it would hurt you, he said quietly. I knew it would make things worse. I didn't want to come between you two, but I saw how miserable she was, and I thought, maybe it would help her to get out of this relationship, to make a fresh start. I didn't want to see her trapped, Noah. I stood up, walking away from him to the small window that overlooked the street. The sound of the city outside felt distant, like I was in a different world, detached from everything around me. The rage inside me was building again, but it wasn't just anger at Simon. It was at Delilah. Why didn't she tell me? We had shared so much love, so much history. And yet, here she was, caught between her brother's influence and the choices that had ultimately cost us everything. I turned back to Simon, my voice shaking with a mixture of frustration and hurt. You don't get it, do you? You think you were helping her, but you weren't. You tore us apart, Simon. You made her feel like she couldn't talk to me, like she had to choose between me and whatever fantasy you painted in her head. His eyes softened, and I could see that he was genuinely regretful. But that didn't change what had happened. It didn't change anything. He had crossed a line that he couldn't undo. I know, he said quietly, and I can't undo it. I was wrong. But Noah, you need to understand something. Delilah's been going through a lot, and I thought she needed a clean break. But I was wrong. She should have talked to you. I paced the room again, the weight of everything pressing down on me. So what now? What am I supposed to do with this information? She left me because of you, and now you expect me to just pick up the pieces and forgive her? Simon stood up, his posture pleading. No, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just trying to explain why things ended up this way. I never meant for it to go this far. But I was worried about her. She's been so distant lately. I thought she was going to implode. I thought she needed space. The doorbell rang just as I was about to respond, breaking the tension that had built up in the room. My heart skipped a beat, and I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of dread and curiosity. Was it her? After everything Simon had told me, I couldn't decide whether I wanted Delilah to walk through that door or if I was better off never seeing her again. But as I made my way to the door, I saw something that I didn't expect, Delilah's face. She was standing there, her hair disheveled and her eyes red as if she had been crying for hours. She looked fragile, broken even. I had never seen her like this, and it took everything in me not to let my emotions get the better of me. Can I come in? She asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face and tell her that it was too late. But another part of me, one that was too familiar with the woman standing in front of me, knew that she was broken, just like I was. And she wasn't just asking for permission to enter my home. She was asking for permission to enter my heart again. Simon stood up from the couch, his face pale. He looked at Delilah for a long moment, then turned to me. I'll leave you two alone, he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of his guilt. He didn't wait for a response. He just left, walking out the door like he was giving us one last chance to figure things out. I looked at Delilah, my heart pounding in my chest. What are you doing here? I finally asked, my voice strained. I had to see you, she said, taking a step forward. Noah, I'm so sorry. I've messed everything up. I don't know what I was thinking. You think you're the only one who messed up? I snapped, the anger rising again. Do you know what this has done to me? You left me, Delilah. You disappeared without a word, without a single explanation. And now you show up here, expecting me to just forgive you? Her eyes filled with tears, and she stepped closer, her hands trembling. I didn't know what to do. I was lost, Noah. I thought I needed space, but I was just running from everything. From myself. From you. From us. I wanted to push her away. I wanted to tell her that I couldn't keep doing this. But I couldn't. She was here, and I couldn't deny that a part of me still wanted to fix things, still wanted to believe that we could somehow make it through this. But could we? Could we really go back to what we had? Or was the damage already done? I'm not sure we can fix this, I said quietly, my voice breaking. I'm not sure I can go back to being the man you need me to be. She closed the distance between us and reached out, touching my arm gently. I don't know if we can fix it either. But I'm here, Noah, and I need you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive her, or if I ever would. But as I stood there, looking into her eyes, I knew one thing for certain. This was far from over. The silence between us was deafening. Her hand, trembling slightly as it rested on my arm, seemed to send a shockwave through me. For the first time since she walked back into my life, I could feel the weight of everything we had lost. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was hurt, confused, and questioning everything I thought I knew about us. Do you even know what you've done, Delilah? I asked, my voice quieter now, trying to push past the raw emotion. You don't get to just walk in here and say sorry like it's enough. Do you even realize what this has done to me? What it's done to us?" She didn't answer at first, and for a brief moment, I saw something in her eyes, something vulnerable, something real. I wanted to believe that the woman I had married was still in there, buried beneath all the mistakes, the lies, the fear. But was I being foolish? Was I just holding on to the past because it was easier than facing the truth? "I know I've hurt you, Noah," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But please, just listen. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was lost, I was scared, and I thought running away would make it better. But all I did was make things worse." I wanted to scream, to tell her that she had already ruined everything by running. But instead, I just stood there, staring at her, my mind racing. How had I missed it? How had I missed all the signs? I thought we were happy, but she was already checking out, already making the decision to leave me long before she actually walked out that door. "I'm not sure I can listen to any more of this," I said, my throat tight. "You don't get to rewrite what happened, Delilah. You don't get to act like I'm supposed to just forgive you and move on. You left me. You chose to walk away. And now you want to waltz back into my life like nothing happened?" Her eyes filled with tears again, and she stepped closer, her voice pleading. I know I made the wrong choice. But I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to fix me. And now I'm just asking for a chance. I'm asking for you to see that I'm trying. I don't want to be the person who left anymore, Noah. I don't want to be that woman." For a moment, all I could do was look at her. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the same person I had known all those years. She was a stranger now, someone who had made choices that had shattered the life we built together. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to shut her out completely. There was still a part of me, some fragile, foolish part, that wanted to believe we could fix this. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I don't know if I can just pick up where we left off. It's not that easy, Delilah." "I'm not asking for us to pick up where we left off," she replied quickly, her voice full of desperation. "I'm asking for a chance to rebuild, for a chance to start over. I don't want to be someone who hurt you anymore. I just want to prove that I'm still capable of loving you the way you deserve." Her words hung in the air, and for the first time in months, I found myself torn. Every part of me wanted to turn away, to shut the door and walk away from the mess we'd created. But there was something in her voice, something raw and unspoken, that made me pause. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was hope. Whatever it was, it made me realize that I wasn't ready to let go just yet. "I don't know how we can move forward, Delilah," I said softly. "But I'm not ready to just throw it all away. I can't promise anything, but I'm willing to try." Her breath caught in her throat, and for the first time since she'd walked into my apartment, a smile, small but sincere, played at the corners of her lips. "That's all I'm asking for, Noah. A chance." I felt something shift in the room, a subtle change in the atmosphere. It was like a door had opened, but I couldn't see what was on the other side. The future was uncertain, and every part of me screamed that I should be careful. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, despite everything, wanted to believe that we could make it work. "I don't know where this will go," I said, finally looking her in the eye. "But I'm not ready to give up on us. Not yet." She reached out, her hand trembling as she gently placed it on mine. "Thank you," she whispered. "I swear, Noah, I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." For a moment, we just stood there, locked in that fragile space between the past and the future, not knowing what the next step would be, but understanding that we had to take it together. It wouldn't be easy. It couldn't be. But in that quiet, uncertain moment, I realized that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us to heal, to rebuild what had been broken. And then, just as the weight of all our decisions seemed to settle between us, there was another knock at the door. This time, I knew who it was. The knock echoed through the apartment once more, this time louder, more insistent. My heart pounded in my chest as Delilah and I stood frozen, staring at each other. For a second, neither of us moved. The air between us, still thick with the tension of our conversation, felt heavier than ever. I glanced at her, unsure of what this latest interruption meant. Who could it be? Delilah's face, already flushed with emotion, paled a little. She took a slow step back, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "Are you expecting someone?" she asked, her voice tight. I shook my head, slowly moving toward the door. What if it was him? I thought. The man I hadn't seen or heard of in years. Her ex. The one who had never really left her life completely, despite the fact that they had broken up long before I ever came into the picture. The one she had kept secret from me, for reasons I still didn't understand. The knocking came again, more forceful this time. I turned the handle slowly, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. As I opened the door, I found myself staring at a face I didn't recognize at first. The man standing before me was in his late 20s, tall, with a sharp jawline and eyes that held a certain darkness behind them. His expression was a mixture of frustration and nervousness. "Are you Noah?" he asked, his voice deep and demanding. "Yes, who are you?" I replied, the protective instinct kicking in, my eyes flicking back toward Delilah, who stood a few feet behind me. He seemed to hesitate for a moment, glancing over at her before his gaze returned to me. "I'm Lucas," he said simply. "I need to speak with you. Both of you." Delilah's face drained of color. I could feel her tension without even having to look at her. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice strained as she took a small step back. Lucas stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his eyes flicking over the apartment briefly before meeting Delilah's gaze. I couldn't help but notice the way his eyes lingered on her. Intense, not the way you look at a stranger, but the way someone looks at someone they have history with. "This is between me and Delilah," he said, his tone suddenly softer, more measured. "But you need to know something. I didn't just come here to cause trouble. I'm here because of the past. Because there's something that neither of you know." I felt a chill creep up my spine as his words sank in. My stomach twisted into knots. Delilah stood still, her face unreadable, but her jaw clenched so tightly I thought she might crack her teeth. What was this about? Why was this man here now? And why did he look like he was about to tell us something that would change everything? I crossed my arms, stepping further into the room, blocking the door. "What is it?" I demanded. "What do you know?" Lucas sighed, clearly reluctant to say anything further. He glanced at Delilah again, his eyes filled with unspoken words. "I'm not just here to stir things up," he said, his voice quieter now. "I'm here because Delilah never told you the full truth. About me, about why she left, and why she's been running from this for so long." My pulse quickened as I turned to look at Delilah. Her eyes were wide, panic setting in. "Lucas," she began, her voice breaking. "Please, don't." But Lucas wasn't finished. "She's been hiding the truth from you for a long time," he said, locking eyes with me. "The real reason she left, the reason she started pulling away, it's not because of you. It's because of me." I turned to Delilah, searching her face for any explanation. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion, of anger. "What the hell is he talking about, Delilah?" I asked, my voice shaking. For a moment, she didn't respond. She just stood there, her eyes shifting nervously, before her shoulders dropped in resignation. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she looked at me. "I never wanted you to know this, Noah," she whispered, her voice raw. "I didn't want to drag you into it. But Lucas is right. There's something I never told you. Something I thought I could keep hidden." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat growing. Tell me everything." Delilah took a deep breath, her hands shaking as she looked at me, then Lucas, and back to me again. "Before I met you, before we even got serious, I was with Lucas. We were involved. But I didn't tell you because it was complicated, and because of how it ended." Lucas nodded slightly, his eyes dark. "It wasn't just a breakup. It was more than that. She left me, but it wasn't because she wanted to. It was because I made her leave." I could feel the blood drain from my face as the pieces started to fall into place. "What do you mean? You made her leave?" Lucas' gaze flicked back to Delilah, and then back to me. "She didn't want to leave, Noah. But I made her. I threatened her. I made her think she couldn't be with anyone else unless she cut ties with me. And I made sure she felt like she had no choice." I felt the ground shift beneath me. My head was spinning. My heart was racing. Delilah hadn't just left me to find herself. She had been manipulated. And now, the man who had manipulated her was standing in front of me, making me feel like a fool for believing the story she had told me. You lied to me?" I asked, my voice trembling with the weight of the revelation. Delilah's face crumpled as she nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you, Noah. I just didn't know how to explain everything to you. I didn't know how to tell you what I had done. I thought I could protect you from the truth." I felt like I couldn't breathe. The anger was bubbling up inside me, threatening to overflow. But there was something else too, something more painful. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that Delilah had never trusted me enough to tell me the truth. That everything I thought I knew about our relationship had been built on lies. I don't know if I can do this, I said, my voice breaking. I don't know if I can forgive this. The words hung in the air like a weight I couldn't lift. Lucas's confession, Delilah's tears, the rawness of the moment. It was all too much. I couldn't focus. I couldn't breathe. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship felt like it was being ripped apart, layer by layer. Delilah's sobs cut through the tension. I'm so sorry, Noah, she whispered, her voice full of regret. I didn't want to lie to you. I didn't want to hurt you, but I was scared. I was afraid of what would happen if you knew. But I never wanted to lose you. You mean everything to me. Lucas stood off to the side, looking like he didn't belong in this moment. But somehow, he was part of it, part of this painful revelation. I never should have interfered, he muttered, his voice soft. I should have let her choose for herself, Noah. I should have trusted her. I could barely look at either of them. I felt like I had been living a lie, believing in something that wasn't real. And yet, as my heart pounded in my chest, another part of me, an honest, raw part, began to piece together the fragments of what I had just learned. Delilah had been scared. She had made mistakes. But hadn't I? Hadn't we both? I took a step back, my mind racing, but I knew I had to face this, for myself and for us. I don't know if I can just forgive and forget, Delilah, I said, my voice low. This is huge. You didn't just hide something. You pushed me away when I thought I was doing everything right. You let me believe something that wasn't true. Delilah stepped closer, wiping her eyes. I know I hurt you, Noah. I wish I could take it all back. But I can't. All I can do is ask for your forgiveness, and hope that maybe, just maybe, we can start over. Together. The weight of her words hit me, but there was something about her honesty, something about how vulnerable she looked now, that made me pause. She wasn't asking me to forget. She was asking for a chance to rebuild, not just the relationship, but herself. She wasn't the woman who walked away from me in fear. She was someone who had realized her mistakes and was willing to fight for what she had lost. Do you really think we can start over? I asked, my voice shaking. I wasn't sure if I even believed it myself. Could we go back to how we were? Could we rebuild after all of this? I don't know, she said quietly, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm not the person I was when I walked away. I can't undo what happened, but I can promise you I'm here now. I'm here, trying to be the woman you deserve. I looked at Lucas, who nodded silently, as though he understood the weight of the moment and the decision I had to make. He had played his part, and now it was up to Delilah and me to decide if we could move forward. I took a deep breath, feeling the tension in my chest begin to ease just a little. I'm not ready to forgive you, Delilah, I said, the words feeling heavy, but also true. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to work through this. Together. Delilah's face softened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly as it rested on mine. Thank you, Noah, she whispered. I'll do whatever it takes to show you that we're worth it. In that moment, I knew that there would still be hard days ahead. There would be trust that needed to be rebuilt, conversations that would cut deeper than I was ready for, and nights when we'd wonder if we'd ever find our way back. But there was something else too, something that felt like the beginning of something new, something fragile, yet full of possibility. For the first time in months, I believed in the idea of a future. Not the perfect future I had once imagined, but a real one, a future we could shape together, piece by piece. And maybe that was enough.